Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. On my last episode, I left you off at the installation of my faucet and the temporary placement of this filthy food service bin that I'm using or going to repurpose into a fully functional sink. I'm just waiting on Amazon to send the replacement, and then I can continue on with this. But in the meantime, I went ahead and I checked with my local hardware store about what I had heard of water still coming through the hot water side of the faucet. And they weren't sure themselves. We kind of thought that maybe it happened to be something that would occur depending on the type of faucet that you have. So not wanting to take a chance, I told them what I was doing, and we decided to work on some of the fittings to get the hot water line capped off. And they had everything that I needed. They had the fitting that screws directly into the 3/8 inch fitting here. As you can see, I've used Teflon tape to seal everything up. And then from that fitting, they went ahead and hooked me up with a cap that goes on there. So that will effectively close off any chance of water coming through the hot water side. And he also took care of me on the cold water line. Essentially, what would have been ideal would be to find a T-fitting that had 3/8 inch male connections where I could have screwed in the hot and cold faucet lines. And then on the leg of the T, it would have been ideal if it had been a barb fitting that would fit right onto the water line that I'm using. No such animal exists, apparently. At least they didn't have it, and they've got a huge stock of fittings. So what he ended up finding me was this fitting that screwed into the 3/8 inch water line. And again, I used the Teflon tape. And then he found me this fitting that screwed into this. The end of this is the 1/2 inch barb fitting, and that you have to really push onto the clear water line that I'm using in my my water system here. So that'll give a nice tight seal, and that will get me all hooked up with the pump. And just to give you an idea of what I was supplied for the hot water side to cap that off, this was a 1/4 inch cap, and this was a 3/8 by 1/4 inch compression fitting. It will come with a compression collar and a nut. All you do is unscrew and remove those and just use the threaded portion into the faucet supply line. And then the other end you would cap off using the 1/4 inch cap. 2 pieces, super simple. And onto the cold water side, the cold water line has a 3/8 inch fitting as well. And you can see the 3/8 inch by 1/2 inch is the connection that he supplied to me to screw into that. And then the 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch is the fitting that has the barb end, and that allows me to convert everything over to where my 1/2 inch water hose will fit right onto that barb end and supply my faucet. And if you're going through the same thing and you're wondering how to connect yours, I did not find any fitting that would give me a T-fitting with 3/8 inch male threads and a 1/2 inch inside diameter barb to connect all that together. So if you're able to find that, great. I've been told it doesn't exist, but in the meantime, if this is what you want to do to get yourself up and going like I have done, then this will save you a lot of running around and a lot of hassle trying to find the right parts. Okay, so how much did all this cost? Well, you can see they're brass fittings. They are not plastic. The Teflon tape I already had, and the total came roughly to $27 for the cap and 3 fittings. And for me, I don't care. It was worth it to walk back out to my van take these out of the package, put Teflon tape on them, and have them work, and I had it all done within a few minutes. That was worth more to me than $27. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, this is the 1/2 inch clear water line that I'm using. And you can see I've only pushed it onto the barb fitting just a little bit. And even that was a little bit of a struggle getting it on there. But I think once I get it pushed all the way up on, I'm going to go ahead and put a clamp on it just to be sure. When I picked up the water line at Home Depot, I also picked up a plastic tee. And you can see it says 1/2 inch inside diameter. That's what the ID stands for. And this is in case I decide I want to branch off the water line and supply something else. Not sure what else I would want to supply at this point, but I got the fitting in case I do. Got my replacement in. Other than being dusty, I don't see anything wrong with it. So I may have lucked out this time and got one I can actually work with. I just used my yardstick to determine the center of the bottom, which actually happens to be this point right here. And I'm going to take my 3.5 inch hole saw and drill through this point. And I'm just going to use a slow speed. And I guess if you create friction, the heat will actually melt the plastic and create burrs. So I've got a brand new hole saw that's 3.5 inches in diameter, and I'll just go ahead and take my time drilling that out. As you can see by taking my time, this came out really good. Nice and smooth, no burrs. I'm glad the hole in the bottom of that came out nice and smooth, because this is the piece that came out of my hole saw. And you can see, even as slow as I was going, it still managed to make enough heat, and that was a brand new blade too. Made enough heat to where the plastic melted and created the burrs that I was talking about. Now as a test fit, we'll see how this fits in the new hole. Nice and flat and smooth. What you want to do, like I mentioned in my last video, is to take some plumber's putty, put it underneath this edge, and then when you set it in the hole, that'll hold that in place. And then you put on your washers that they've supplied, and this locking threaded ring that goes on there. When you tighten this down, you're going to get some of the plumber's putty. It's going to ooze out around the edge, and you just wipe that off, and you'll create a nice watertight seal. I'm going to balance this on my knee because I can't hold the camera, and there's no plumber's putty on the underside of this to hold this in place. But I'm going to try to do a little mock-up just to show you the steps of what needs to be done. They provide you with a rubber ring, and put that on first. That'll go up against the bottom of whatever you're going to use for a sink. Then they have a fiber ring that goes on there. And then you take your lock nut and set this on here and screw it into place. Once you get this all tightened down, that's going to draw this drain basket in tighter against the bottom. And that's what causes the oozing of the plumber's putty on the other side. And like I mentioned, you just take a cloth and wipe off the excess plumber's putty, and that will form a watertight seal against the bottom. Like I said, I don't have the plumber's putty in place yet on the other side, but that's pretty much it right there. everything would be tightened down, and then that will form that watertight seal. And then you can go ahead and start putting on your tail piece and the other pieces that connect to this, as I showed in the previous video. I'm just doing this as a little bit of a mock-up to show you the steps. I'm not actually doing this right now, but this is the easiest way to do any type of a sink install, I think, is to complete all these steps first, attach everything onto the sink, and then put the sink into place in the hole. Because think about it, if you were to call a plumber in later on, or someone to work on, either replacing this, or you've got a leak somewhere, then they're going to have to lay on their back underneath the counter and take all this apart or work on it. It's a lot easier to do it right now. So I just take the washer, set it up on here, and you can see this nut is slid over the tail piece. You just slide this up on top, and then you would just tighten the ring up. And then once you've got that tightened up, that will complete your drain assembly to that point, and then you just attach your drain line onto this tailpiece. And that would be your drain assembly up to that point. And you could take this and go ahead and set it into the opening on the counter. Put a little bit of silicone underneath the lip right there. Set this down in place. The silicone will hold this to the counter and will perform a nice watertight seal. And then it'll be a lot easier to just attach a pipe to the tailpiece there and run it into whatever bottle you're going to use, or however you're getting rid of your gray water. Well, I have to admit, I screwed up. The previous fittings that I ordered up for my water pump, I thought just by quick look at them that they were going to screw right onto the pump, which they did. I never thought to check out the barbed end of it, which is supposed to go to my water hose. Come to find out, after I tried to put my water hose on the barbed fitting, it was snug, but it still seemed a bit loose. So I went back to read the description, and it's unlike me not to read the description all the way through. And come to find out, the ones that I had before were designed to be used with PEX plastic tubing. So I end up having to reorder, and these are the correct ones. These will screw right onto my water pump, and they will allow my clear water hose to finally fit on there, and that will complete the faucet portion of my install. And now that I've got the correct fittings, I get these screwed on, and then I can get my water line hooked up. I've already got the Teflon tape on here, as you can see, so that will give me a nice watertight seal. I just have to make sure that I've got the barb angled where I need it to go here. Get it in the right direction. A little tight under here. You just want to snug these up. You know, they are just plastic, so you don't want to break them off, of course, or crack them. So that's pretty snug. I have room to snug it up some more if I need to. And likewise, I went ahead and I got out the wrenches, and I got my water lines all tightened up. They're all cinched down nice and tight, so they're all ready to go as well. And the same thing with my hot water line. I got that snugged over here into the corner of the counter, and you can see I've got it fastened right there to hold it in place and out of the way. And at the same token, if I need to use it at some point, I can easily remove that little clamp and then pull this back out and use it. But right now, it's sitting over here off to the side. I've got my cap in place down there, so that will keep the water from coming out through there. Whether it does or not, I don't know, but I'm not taking a chance. I got my cold water lines all hooked up from my supply line to my discharge line, which goes out to my faucet. I just got finished putting a bead of silicone all the way around, and now it's time to get this thing set in place. You can see as I pushed around the outer edge of my sink, it forced out the silicone. I put a nice heavy bead along the underside of that, so that will help keep everything sealed up. Nothing will get in underneath here, and at the same token, the silicone will help adhere this to the countertop. I bought my water pump new well over a year ago, probably a year and a half ago. I've never hooked it up or used it, and you know, obviously I've got it mounted and it's wired into a switch here in my van, and I can attest that it works really well. And don't ask me how I know, but when I was testing water in this jug, I turned it on, and even though I had all sorts of trouble getting this barbed end to fit into the hose, apparently that wasn't enough, because the pressure of the pump blew that right off, and I got an impromptu shower. I originally thought about placing clamps on the water lines anyway, and a buddy of mine suggested that even though this fit on real tight, maybe try to soften it up with some heat, slide the clamp on, put the hose into the barb fitting, then slide the clamp over it and tighten it down. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And now I'm real glad that I wired that pump directly into my switch panel, because that's the first thing I reached for. I switched that pump right off, and everything pretty well got soaked though. Well, let's turn this pump on and we'll give it another try and see if we can coat everything with water or if everything is going to work well. Okay, pump's on. Everything is pressurized. See if we get any leaks. Not seeing any drips anywhere, including the hot water line over there that's capped off. All right, now let's put it on some cold water and try it. Yeah, it looks like I have a working faucet. My drain's not hooked up yet, so I used the one that could really use a bath. Figure I'd put some water in there. Okay, now it's still pressurized, so let me get down underneath and check. Okay, nothing here that indicates a leak, so I guess I'm okay so far. But in the meantime, I'm only going to leave the pump pressurized when I'm using water for whatever reason. When it's going to be unused for an extended period of time, that's when I'll shut the pump down. Well, there's only one thing left to do to complete this entire setup, and that is to complete the drain assembly. I think I'm going to go with the Camco unit, because it is made specifically for RVs, where there is a little space underneath the sinks, and of course this is no exception. That unit will extend only a little ways down past the drain basket, and I believe it has a built-in P-trap. And with that also, I think the discharge is a 3/4 inch line, and I can run that down into one of these smaller jugs so that I can keep it emptied out on a frequent basis. On the front of my sink cabinet, I thought about installing a couple doors and then have them hinged to open outward. And then I remember when I had a basement bar that I was building out in my home, I used some sliding door tracks. That made it so much easier to just slide the door open and close. And I think that's what I'm going to do here, because I got these tracks, and I've got a number of sets of them. There's an upper and a lower. And once I cut this to size and put it in place down here on the bottom and up at the top, then I'll be able to put in two doors that will be able to slide one way or the other. And the nice thing about those tracks is you can lift the panel up and out. That's the way you got to put them in anyway. You have to put it into one track, let it sit down into the other, and then they're able to slide back and forth. And by installing those tracks, it kind of gives me the best of both worlds, because not only will I won't have to worry about having space, to open the door up if it's hinged on each side, but if I still need access into this area, I can lift one or both doors all the way out and still have it all open just like this. I did a little shuffling around, and you may have noticed that my spice racks are now in 2 rows, and they're 2x2, and that will keep them up away from the stove and make it easy to access those. To the left of that, I've added in a 700-watt microwave that will work off either my generator or the inverter, or if I'm on shore power. And I changed out the TV. I swapped out the 32-inch that I thought was way too big for in here. At the time, I was going to get a 24-inch, but they were super expensive for some reason. I don't know why. This Vizio 24-inch is a smart TV. Came in on sale. I went ahead and picked it up. I think it looks a lot better there. Not to mention, it allows room for the microwave below it. Okay, now I've got to get the opinion of two of my biggest fans. Natalie and Jocelyn, what do you think? You like the way this is set up now, just like this? Do you like the smaller TV because that allows me to put the microwave in underneath? I think it's pretty cool. And the next time I come down, I'm sure you're going to want to check it out. It's a little ironic that with this segment that I'm going to do and show you is going to be about remote controls, and I had to search for my remote controls before I even did this. I'm always looking for these things. When you're driving, they could bounce anywhere, and they're never where you want them to be. What I found on Amazon was a package of 4 of these little mounts. They come in 2 pieces. They have self-adhesive, removable backing paper. One part is going to stick to the back of the remote. The other part is going to mount to the wall or wherever you're going to want to locate the remote. And I'm forever looking for the remote control for my ceiling vent fan. And it's right here. Now, you can see the smallest button is on the back. This one has a little indentation so that the base part will grab right onto this thing. I'm not kidding you. These things, it'll pull right out of my hand. Look at, I'll show you how quick that is. That just pulls out. And it will not come out of that holder unless you lift it up and out. But you don't need to bring it above and set it in. It'll just pull itself right into place. Stays right there. So it's not going to fall while you're driving out on the road. And it's always going to be right where I last put it. I think that was a pretty cool invention.